Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the KRVIA Encounters. Urban Studio, headed by Pronit Nath, is an office of young, cross-disciplinary architects that operate as a collective collaborative of multiple expertise influenced by the new sciences, information technology, artificial intelligence, infrastructural systems, and the contemporary city. We find ourselves plotting a trajectory that swings between what we have recited and received over the course of our formal education and what we have to do today in our market-driven practice and still keep the faith, as it were. We're constantly trying to merge frantic, sometimes rather banal projects that provide the opportunity to experiment and test our premises with our search for a long-term, consistent vision. We realize that we no longer view designs in terms of individual projects or buildings, but see it in relation to models or prototypes that we're constantly editing and transferring from one project to another in the studio. Thus, in today's instant culture of anything goes and little or no context, what remains of prime importance to us is the prototypical design model, inclusive of structure, program, and material. Urban Studio's endeavor is the development of these more universal models arising from the issues of localized problems and context. We welcome to KRVIA Mr. Pronit Nath.
Hello. So am I audible?
Yes, Pronit, you have to share your screen now.
Yeah, my screen is shared. Can you see that?
Yes,
Yes?
yes,
Okay, so can I start?
yes, yes.
Okay. Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me for this week's encounter. As that was our introduction in terms of what we want to show you in terms of how we work on some of the projects that we've had the chance of working on over the last 10 years. And what we wanted to kind of show was just how we deal with the different projects of different scales of different programs, different locations and context, or no context really throughout. So for us, it was just a way of working and also modulating ideas that we can use through different projects, through different programs, through different scales. Essentially, the idea is the same, or the spatial idea is the same, and we kind of just kind of use it and tweak it for different programs and even scales. So from even a small project to a large master plan project as well. So yeah, I mean that was the first image was, of course, everybody knows, the whole dichotomy of education, of the purity of education versus what happens in real life, in practice. So for us, that's been a constant challenge uh, uh, to work with over the years. So we just quickly start with some of the key ideas. We have that we kind of work with, and we have kind of dwelled on. So something like capacities for endlessness, abstractions, modular rhythms, reconfigurations, projected environments. So these are ideas that that we kind of use through different skills and projects, depending on the program and depending on where what can fit, of course. So this is a project that we did. This is a hotel project. It's called the Devi Ratan. It's in Jaipur. It has very strong local context. And for us, it was about abstracting the local context of Rajasthan, of how do you make a contemporary new hotel in today's Rajasthan. So most projects they just kind of do like a pastiche copy paste of the motifs of traditional elements, all of that. So we kind of didn't want to do, obviously do that, but just kind of reinterpret it in today's scenario. And for us, we started with a lot of color, so to use color very boldly, and these are some of the images that we did. Uh, so through the whole project, we've used different bold colors and abstracted traditional patterns and motifs, but in a contemporary way, in the way that it's conceived, and also in the way that it's constructed. So yeah, that's the basic. These are the basic spaces. That's the reception space, which is a complete red space. This is actually also reflecting on the colors of the Navratan, which is 9 gems of Jaipur. So we kind of took off and played with that story. So these are the spaces that came about based on these abstractions. So the same thing went onto the rooms as well, and where again we conceived of certain elements. Like in this case, it was like a necklace room where we basically took a lot of traditional craft. Like in this case, there's a thickly mirror, but which is the traditional mirror work. But we basically combined that with laser cut mirror, beveled mirror, to form like a jewel like a jewel like piece that organizes the entire room through the color. So uh, essentially it goes across the room to form different elements like the desk, the headboard, the light pelmet, the sideboard, all of that. Plus, throughout the hotel, also we've taken the traditional herringbone leheria floor and we've made it into a modular tile, cement tile that kind of goes and organizes and changes the pattern and scale and organizes the room and the elements within the room. So yeah, these are the images that came about. So there are different rooms with different colors through this space. So it's all about abstracting. In this case, it was all about abstracting traditional work and context, but through contemporary construction and conception. So these are some of the images as it changed from room to room, color to color. That was the restaurant building that we did. So essentially, in any space, these are unlike most city spaces, where urban spaces where you have no light, no height, no view. But here we have a lot of space. Also, it's a resort, so the way that we organized the architecture was as per the interior layout. So it's all connected. It's not that we fitted in the interiors later. So these were a series of faceted volumetric arches, again like the traditional Rajasthani arch profile. So maintaining that, where under every volumetric grid you have a table. So that's essentially how the structure was designed. And that's basically and then there's also the grid changes for service access. So essentially that's over here we also played with the color, with the gradation from a gray to gold as it goes up into the ceiling. So again, the whole idea was to make it look and feel extremely Indian and of its context. based and located in Jaipur, Rajasthan, but still extremely contemporary as well, like a very contemporary take on Indian design and craft. So this is again an abstracted version of the Jali, which became a small conference building. This for the protection from the sun and the heat. And that's a small another small building, which is a bar area, which is a cylindrical space, but also has a laser cut pixelated mirror ceiling. The whole idea is that it kind of reflects movement of the people and of all the activity that happens on the floor. So it has a very kind of lava-like movement on the ceiling. So yeah, these were again our buildings and the facades that we work with in stone using traditional hand carved jalis. But again, here we've kind of modulated the grid and the rhythm of these patterns. Basically, it's taking again the traditional motif and contemporizing it. So that's what I was saying before. So where we basically introduce a lot of tessellations and movement within the traditional motifs of these Jali systems to form these screens. So they also work in terms of hiding the structure and in terms of modulating the opacity of the screen. So in coming from the same direction, after the whole idea is to show you different elements and different ways of working. So from these abstracted jalis, we also made tropical skins. I mean, it's a same version of that for different buildings in the city. So in this case, this is a mixed-use building in Bombay, where we basically formed our own second skin out of aluminium as well as GRC panels. So where we can modulate the opacity and the porosity of the skin depending on the program, based on the program that it encompasses. So that's basically the whole idea. It's a very simple city building based on the laws, based on the DMC laws. So for us, the project became also we want to make a tropical building. We wanted to avoid a curtain wall for this commercial building. It has a very simple windows at the back of the skin where you can open these windows during the day. It has a localized AC, so it doesn't have a central AC system. So these things kind of help in terms of controlling the environment, the heat gain, and also they're more economical in that sense, or very tropical as well for this. So also what happens is that these things become like a bespoke element that give the project its identity. That's just from the inside. So it's in a residential place, so it also affords a lot of privacy. So again, the whole idea of an abstracted jali at a different scale is a different program, but the idea is the same of a jali, but an extruded one for a multi-housing unit. where basically this is a building that we're doing in Bombay currently, and what we've done is these are apartment. It's a massive apartment building with about 200 apartments. But what we've done is we split the units in the core. So we've split it at half levels. So if you're one floor at say the first floor, the next one will be at 1.5 to 2.5. So in that sense, the whole idea is that we wanted to kind of when you see a lot of apartment buildings or housing blocks, you can make out that these are toilets, these are bedrooms, these are living rooms, these are balconies, and it's quite messy, the entire structure with the ducts and and all the elements that go into making the program. So there's no coherent kind of move that holds all these things together. And also, it kind of these turn out to be very monstrous in terms of their scale and their presence in the environment. So for us, we kind of started with that premise of wanting to avoid that and to have like a binding factor through the entire design. And that's why we kind of split these units, and we had each unit then became like an interlocking module. Almost, it's just like a jolly, like an abstract jolly, which has a lot of rhythm and play, and then that became like a deck for the apartments to spill out into. So these are all apartments with big decks. And that's a basic plan in terms of the cores. And there's a whole balcony, the deck system that kind of goes around, which is landscape, and that's the progression of the facade. Yeah, that was basically the scheme. So for us, it became like the whole idea of a brace soleil with reference to an extruded jali that kind of holds this program in terms of structure as well. So if you see these diagonal RCC brace, the entire building is in RCC. These are all structural. So the facade is actually it's like a diagrid that supports the entire facade cantilever of the building. Yeah, that's just the top floor. That's the sale model. We do a lot of series of study models as well. So again, taking off from this, we had another housing project, which is low to mid-income housing. And again, what we felt was that we had the same issues of extrapolating the program outward, and all the problems with it. Also, problems of maintenance when you see low to mid-income housing all over the city. So you see the issues of what happens with the windows, how people live, and of course they need to live like that, where they spill off in terms of their clothes or in terms of items outside, the maintenance of the building, all of that. So these are all issues for us. Housing is also a lot about efficiencies, and so what we kind of focused and went forward with was like a very simple modularity and the rhythm that produces with that for kind of for solving these large issues, because everything is all about money. It's about efficiencies for these large projects. So this is like a 12 lakh square feet project in Thana that we are finishing now. A lot of it is finished, but it's a large project for low to mid income. But the whole project is designed around 11 feet grid system. So everything is on 11 feet grid. There's a living room that's 11 feet, the bedrooms are 11 feet, kitchens are 11 by 8. Two bathrooms come together to form 11 feet. So the thing is that in that way it's very efficient in terms of the structure, where it reduces the cost of when it becomes a very efficient structure, because we only have two types of columns and beams throughout this entire construction. And also so that's basically the 11 feet grid system that works in the plan. It's a very simple way of organizing all the planning. And what happens is that because of that, we also have the same set of modular windows that kind of extrapolate the program from the living program outward into a window box. So what we have is essentially we have more than 5,000 windows, which are the most expensive part of housing construction, as the same windows. So the whole idea was to have an economy of scale, to basically make the same window in terms of construction, and to reduce cost, but also to get a better product out. So we basically, if you see, there's a simple window box which was basically flipped in the X and Y axis to form these very nice rhythms, and also the grill, the security grill form becomes part of the facade for this project, because no matter what, psychologically everybody puts in these grills at different levels and their own type of grills, so it became part of the design. So it's the window becomes an integral extension of the living space that provides natural light and ventilation, of course, but also it has the entire window box hides all your other services like air conditioning, or it also becomes a storage, additional area for storage for these families. So these are the actual pictures that you can see the modular rhythms that run through the entire building. Through the scale of this, it's 27 floors high, and every 4 floors we have a common terrace area, which is just about 500 square feet common terrace area, just to give a break to people living in these concrete monsters, right? So these are the built pictures. So you don't see all the services that are hidden behind this layer. It's basically adding a new layer in front of the windows. It's an extension for every room, this window box. That's just a podium for parking. So again, taking the whole, prototypical model from modular rhythms of the scale of that previous project, which was a massive housing project. We use the same idea of modular rhythms of self-similar units to make a different space in a city project. So this is a small restaurant that we did In most city projects, we have this issue of no light, no height, no view, and we need to make a new environment out of these spaces. So the whole idea here was to use a very simple module that kind of formed a space within a space. In this project, this is called Papaya. This is in Bombay, and we took one module, and we kind of there's like a frame and an infill within these modules that were joined together, and it kind of it formed the entire space from the walls and the ceiling. Basically, these also kind of were glowing and were projected as well, projected images that they received. So the whole idea here was it also reflected the molecular food that was on offer. That was the whole idea for this restaurant. That was the basic plan in terms of how these kind of clouds weave themselves through. That was the pictures. So in terms of that, you can see that it's just one module that's like a self-similar variation with a self-similar variation that repeats itself and modulates the space. They were also projected images onto these things. So the whole idea was to have a very dynamic effect for this space. So it kind of changes and it gets projected. It's a projection mapping that happens onto this. And then coming back, I mean, into the same idea of modular rhythms with a singular unit. So from the housing to a restaurant space, and then into like a larger architectural low-rise resort space as well. So in this case, this was a Rasa tented resort in Jaipur. And of course, all of us know the context of this. The site is a beautiful valley site with the Amer fort wall that runs through the site. So we could not build like simple brick structures because it's a forest land, but we had to build simple tents, fabric tents. So it became like a tented project. That's the complete layout. So the orientation is east-west. So that's just the basic plan with all the tents facing out into the mountains on the east-west direction, as well as the main space, which is just the kitchen service areas in the middle, and the restaurant spaces out looking into the Amer fort wall. So here, again, we basically abstracted a very simple tent structure that you see all over India or in other spaces like this, but into a simple white cube that's set in the landscape. So for us, that became a very simple module that we repeated in scale and variation throughout the project. So that's also integrated into the landscape, into a very Mondrian-like gridded landscape with different textures. And that's basically the scale and the rhythm of these tents that run through. So it's only facing east or west, and that's the toilet block at the back, that's the tent, that's the room, the module of the room, and you can see the whole Amer fort wall that runs across. So essentially, it was just the self-similar repetition of one module again, where we've applied it to this program and scale as well. So what we wanted to show was just the application of this through different programs and scales. Or the landscape is mostly edible landscape. Uh, and these are again abstractions of the traditional Kshatris that form a pavilion outside the tent. So again, using a lot of traditional ways of working, where we have these large 12 feet high stone slabs that we use directly as structure. That's just the room module. Also, the way the foundation of these have been designed as a continuous beam, like a plinth beam that also rises above the floor to form the headboard and to form the study units. Uh, so it also becomes structural, but also modulates itself to form part of the interior spaces in terms of the furniture units. This is also more efficient in terms of where we avoided using individual foundations for this entire project. So that's that whole plinth beam that runs across and forms a place where the divan kind of sits in, or there's a headboard, or the study units fit into this space, into this unit, into this element. So these are again screens which are very simple, just rectangular pieces of stone. And that's a reception building. So it was again the same module of the cube, which became the room, which then we sliced diagonally and moved through it as well diagonally to form the reception building, to form units that form the reception building. Again, in this case, there was a whole capacities for endlessness that you see in the previous projects as well. So for us, the same ideas we're kind of using in different contexts. So it was just for us, what's important is the development of these ideas and how we can actually use it practically in real projects. So that became so what happens was, again, you have the rhythms, the traditional rhythms of the profiles of these these arches, like what you see traditionally, which got like a contemporized version of these self-similar modular units that you go through. So these are just the studies, and this has this whole capacity of endlessness that it can kind of keep going and extending as and when required. So these became the spaces. This is all in fabric uh, and a simple steel structure. This was again an abstraction of the Jali as well that we did in the other project, but in this case we kind of abstracted and contemporized it even more to form a simple screen wall which allows, it's a privacy wall but allows ventilation to happen. There's thick marbles, local marble slabs used directly, just like a pack of cards. To form this screen wall. So that basically became a screen courtyard for the bathrooms. So again, for us, it was also about abstracting traditional profiles to new effects. So for the same project for the restaurant building, so this is a traditional Rajasthani arch module, or the profile of the traditional arch that you see. And what we did was we just flipped the profiles and extruded the surface between these to form one module. So again, this is one module that repeats itself. So that's the traditional arch module, that's a new twisted arch module, but with the same profile. There's exactly the same proportions and profile that becomes one module and starts joining up again with a capacity for endlessness to start joining up to start forming the space. So for us, again, that was a very important way of making space. Then whether it's a restaurant or it can be anything, for us that really doesn't matter in that sense. But for us, what's also important is the effect of that space and like how do you kind of interpret the tradition and the context of where it's cited. So these became the modules that repeated themselves to join very simply into and the grid became like a diamond grid. These just model studies, that's the plan. And then within that grid system, we've incorporated our program. And so if you see, that's in the profiles are still very traditional, but they've kind of been twisted around to form a very contemporary version of the traditional arch. So this way it also allows more light and more views. It kind of opens up the entire structure, but keeping the profiles, maintaining the same profiles. So that's just the way that the form turns out from the outside. In the same way, in the same theme, in the same type of prototypical model, we have the traditional profiles with new effects, where we use it to a different scale. So this was the traditional Amer of fort, very famous wall that you see, and these kind of motifs that you see all over in this context. And what we did was to form a very simple screen. We basically used exactly the same motifs and the same scale, all of it the same, and it's just basically sketched it out in 3D. So we kind of made these kind of profiles in metal, in cast metal, and made like a very simple screen wall to kind of just situate yourself in this context. So and we look at the same things but in a new way. So for us that's quite important. So just using the traditional motifs, but in a contemporary, in a new way of looking at it. So the same thing then from the architectural scale also works on a furniture scale as well. So these are traditional temple boxes or toy boxes that you see, and we've used that in a hotel room where basically all the programs of the room in terms of the safe, the study, cupboard, this and other storage that you need, like the mini bar. All of these go into this one space, into this one unit. Uh, Also, what we've done is we've used like a very we've abstracted traditional miniature paintings and used that instead of using art on the wall. We've actually done that on this furniture piece, just like the traditional temple boxes, to embellish these with this. So that became the space. These are again different graphic works that we developed in the studio as an abstraction of the miniature paintings. And that's basically the entire toy box that opens up to form all the different programs of storage that you need for any room. So for for so we were also very interested in things that are moving, like objects that are furniture pieces or large architectural elements that actually move physically to reconfigure space. And from that, reconfigurations became quite, intriguing for us. So we had another project that we did in the city, which is an art gallery, and it's a typical commercial space, which really the space has nothing to offer. There are a lot of columns within the space. So if you see the black dots are columns within this entire space. It's a large 15,000 square feet space, and we had to convert this into an art gallery. So the whole idea for an art gallery today is that we really don't know what kind of configuration the gallery might need in terms of projected art, art on the walls, sculptures, how the curator might modulate the space for different shows. So it was all about that kind of flexibility and reconfiguring the space. And we basically came up with the idea of having these are the existing columns and capitals for that in that space, that like in any commercial space, and we made like a very simple box wall that kind of hinges around this, and it rotates as well as slides at the same time. So we had to design our own hardware to do this. So there's no hardware that allows you to slide as well as rotate at the same time, while also having the electrical circuits running through them. So that was the basic plan for that space, which also then started to reconfigure and also to modulate, to kind of cordon off certain spaces, and then it allowed a lot of reconfiguration to happen. So these are just like model studies in terms of how you can slice up the space in different ways. That was just some drawings for the hardware system of ball bearings and sliders that we used, that we fabricated ourselves for this whole system to work. And it had to be also very light in the sense that just one person can actually move these huge architectural boxes. So they also hide the columns, they also give ambient light, and also become a surface for art for this the whole gallery. And that's just some of the photographs of the actual space. The same reconfiguration of the boxes. And there's just a small video that you can see the movement of this. Yeah, so that was the very quick, just to give you an idea of this reconfiguring of space that was that we've been toying with. So we've done a series of other smaller projects as well, where we have a singular organizing element through the whole space that we use as architects, and not like typical interior designers, but to modulate the space, to control the program in terms of material, in terms of form, in terms of just the whole program of the space. So this was an office project where basically everybody shares the same table. So it's like one singular element and forms a datum, which is at a 2 feet 6 height, and that becomes a table. And it's for the open plan, instead of having smaller individual desks, everybody shares the same desk. That became quite nice as well for the office environment. And that's what the whole space is. The same idea actually worked for a restaurant space as well, where the singular element, where the datum was actually water. So where we put tables like outdoor restaurant tables within this datum, raised datum, and essentially it's the same move, the same idea, but through different programs. And of course, it's the same idea again that works even through a master plan. So we've done a master plan. This is in Raipur, which is about 50 acres. So the whole idea here was about green corridors, or if you see like a finger system that like it's a spatial model that works that you saw in the office table or the restaurant water, the fingers that run between tables. In this case, it was for a master plan that became like a system of green corridors that ran through the entire to organize the entire master plan. So typically, if you see any master plan that works, the diagram on the top left is a standard double-loaded system of roads and plots back to back. It's all about efficiencies as well here. That's extremely important. And what we've done is we've added a simple green corridor between the plots to form a lot of privacy as well as dedicated pedestrian pathways throughout the project. So that's basically the plan. That's the way of that. These are the green corridors, which are just 7.5 meters wide, but that join up into the main green system. So these are just some model studies that you did. So there's a ring road that runs through, which comes in to form a cul-de-sac. and then there's these green corridors that form join into the larger green. So basically, every house just steps out into the green area without crossing the road, and from anywhere to anywhere you can go within the entire master plan without crossing any roads. Uh, so that's basically a section of the master plan that you will see that all the houses you can come out into the green and go, say, to the clubhouse or to each other's houses without crossing the road or without going through the car zone. This also increased the value of the plots. That was like an effect, but more importantly, it gave a lot of privacy and added a lot of green area to the space, where we could do a lot of planting, where it was almost about 4 trees or 5 trees per person within this master plan. So the whole idea of these green corridors or avenues was a very classic landscape idea of the tree-lined avenue. That's the entire project, and these are the actual photographs of what these avenues look like now, with all the houses and different projects that will come behind that. So there's a lot of privacy that it offers. So within a 50-acre development, there's almost 4 kilometers of these dedicated walking and cycling tracks that also change in terms of plantation from avenue to avenue, from different avenues. So this is these all connected throughout the entire project. It's all woven between these different plots at the back. That's the scale of this bamboo. If you see this, it's about 6 meters high. So what we're trying to show is that it's just the same idea that runs through different scales and contexts and programs of projects. So again, just like the previous projects, like a singular organizing element, in this case was like a ceiling chandelier, which we had to do for a large interior project here in Bombay, where we modulated the scale and the intimacy of the different spaces just through varying the heights of a simple catenary curve, which became a lighting chandelier. But essentially, that's one element that organizes the entire space. So these are just some drawings, and that's the actual image. The same way, like a hanging catenary curve organizes that. We've also organized another space with just one element, which is a striated arch, using recycled and upcycled OSB board as one material that runs through the entire project and modulates itself through varying arch profiles. Just one material and one move through this entire space. This is the same thing as a recycled wooden grid for another project, or recycled RCC jalis for another project. Abstractions of Bandra bungalow facades for another project as one idea for all these spaces, or counterweighted woven wires which is in Chennai, which is the whole idea of a weave, the traditional weaving system that kind of changes the scale and divides the space programmatically as well. So these are counterweights, which are olambas, like the carpenters that use, and these are simple steel cables. So what we've also, in terms of practice for certain different projects, we also had to do buildings where we have to deal with skins, where we have this thing of skin deep or deep skins in terms of relief. This is for a commercial mall project that we did in Chennai. It's about abstracting, it's about using one material, which is zinc, and tessellating it and abstracting it just to form the whole idea of luxury. This is another project that we've done, a living green facade, where it's only skin deep, where we were brought in at a later date. But instead of doing any other material, instead of relief, we found that just the living green facade, which would work extremely well. This is a mixed-use clubhouse, office, and a sports complex in Surat. That's basically from the inside. And in the same way, we're doing a commercial building now in Chennai, which is again a living green facade. In this case, what I want to say is that these are for us, for doing projects like this in India is a challenge. Essentially, also because of the rules and regulations that different cities or the National Building Code allows or doesn't allow. In this case, what we've done is that in every building, there is a refuge area that has to be for fire refuge area, like the diagram on the right hand side, that has to be left. So that what we have done is divided that area on alternate levels as per the NBC code for the fire decks in terms of if there is a fire. So the whole idea was to use that on alternate levels and to heavily plant them. This way, what we do is that we completely avoid a curtain wall system in our tropical climate. It becomes a living green facade. There are a lot of examples like Jeffrey Bower's Kandalama Hotel, or examples all over the world as well. But for us to achieve this in our context was quite nice, which we are doing right now. And it became a very simple structural grid that formed a 2.4 meter wide balcony that these offices can open up into. So essentially, it's just that's basically the detail of it. Yeah, so we just wanted to essentially wrap this up with showing you some of the ideas that we have in terms of how we use them at, like I was saying before, in different scales and different contexts throughout different programs in our practice. And yeah, that's what it's all about right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If anyone has any questions, y'all can type it in the chat box and we'll ask them to the speaker. Any questions?
So the movable walls you created for the gallery, were they operated manually or through an automation?
Yeah. No, they've operated manually. Everything's operated manually.
So it was light enough for that?
Yeah, it was light. It had to be light enough for that. So we had to create the hardware. The hardware was a series of ball bearings and sliders, as well as the wheels that you see on the trolleys at the airports. They're the heavy-duty resin plastic wheels. So So we used all of that to make that happen. So we couldn't find any hardware that kind of could actually do that, but we had to make our own hardware.
Thank you.
In the pools of water and the restaurant and office respectively, was there any reasoning behind the pattern beyond ergonomics and spatiality, or was it just put there as an efficient pattern?
So it had to be efficient because basically in an office in that much area you need to fit so many people. Same thing in a restaurant, right? In terms of you need the density of users, also the space between them. So essentially what we did was we because when you present and when you have to make it, present to the client, you also have to see an efficiency comparison versus if you didn't do this element and you just had simple tables and chairs or simple workstations, what would be the difference? So we had to actually line that out first as you would normally do, and then play with it in terms of how we can achieve a better mix and better proportions of occupying the space.
Thank you.
We have another question from one of the students. You mentioned working around the rules for refuge areas and combining, oh wait, just a second, it's gone away, and combining them for those large volumes of green space in the building. While the student loved the idea and its execution, they're wondering if it takes away from the logic of close access to refuge areas for all parts of the building.
So what happens is, as per the National Building Code, this is a loophole that we've used for our design, right? I mean, to serve our purpose. So what happens in normally in buildings that you see, like you see buildings, commercial buildings in BKC or anywhere else, you'll see glass facades, and you will see some in all these buildings. You'll see like a place where there's no facade at all, and that's a refuge area. And that's a certain percentage of area that you need to leave. But also there is a law there, and that's at every 24 meters. The first area comes at 24 meters, and after that every 8 floors. So that's the area that you need. The same area can be used on every floor. So every floor can also have 10% of this balcony area for the fire deck. And but then what happened with that was the deck was not wide enough throughout the periphery of the building. So what we did was we put it on every alternate floor, also because we want large trees and heights, and use that as a fire deck. It's 2.4 meters wide, 8 feet wide, and out of that, about 4 feet will be used for the planters, and 4 feet will be used for the fire deck in terms of area calculation and everything else. So that's how we've organized this entire system of the living facade. But in this context, for us, of course, these ideas have been around all over the world, and you see this, and we're all seeing this and are quite mesmerized by this, right? It's a great way to actually clad buildings or not to have any cladding, right? In terms of, I mean, all the buildings should be like this. But we are using this technique as a loophole to serve our hidden agenda.
Yeah. Another question, what did you keep in mind when abstracting the jali? Like what elements to keep and what elements to modernize?
So it all depends on how there are in any jali. First of all, there is a rhythm, right? Because the jali has a module which repeats itself. So that module is something that you decide in terms of the program and how it suits you. So whether it's a traditional module like we did in the restaurant, because it had an effect and an affect as well, or when people see it, it still should be Indian, or say in a housing project, it was the module became of a window which we kind of tweaked in the X and Y axis, and then repeated itself. So when you repeat it, you can do a lot of things with self-similarity as well, but the module remains. The whole idea of the module was also for economies of scale, right? Because you need to be able to afford these things and make it happen. So it all depends on the profile, and the module come from the program and the need. But the idea is of the larger idea is of repetition and rhythm, like traditional jalis. Yeah. And of course, whether you use it as a screen or you use it as a way to divide a program, that's up to you.
All right. Any more questions before we wrap up for the day? Yes, we have one more. Have you ever considered glitching the modules you abstract, or does that kind of a design style conflict with the studio's idea of a rhythm?
No, I think it's great if you can. You need to be able to do that. You need to glitch it. You need to play with it. You need to scale it. You can do a lot of things with it. But essentially, what happens is in construction, in real construction, and that's great, in the studio, it's a very strong and a very potent technique to do that. But in construction, what happens is when you do that, then the costs change, because what happens is for us, if the modular work, because of the cost, we had to still fit it in the cost of a regular building. I mean, no client is going to let you do that if just for that, just for the joy of that, right? So it had to still fit in the cost, and therefore we were restricted by not being able to play with it that much more. But there are ways now. I mean, what happens is you have to realize. I mean, going forward, we also, as you understand, the junctions. If you keep the junctions or you keep certain intersections as standard, and then you change things around, that can still work. I mean, for us, it was we had to achieve it, right? And we had to achieve it in the actual construction sense, yeah. So that's why we were also limited by that idea, by that fact.
All right. One more question. A lot of your rhythm patterns seem very monochrome, but you showed examples of playing with color in the lighting and elements individually. But have you experimented with color patterns and rhythms?
Yeah, we are doing that right now. Again, so for larger building projects, to change color becomes a hassle in terms of future maintenance and capital cost. Uh, but we are doing that right now, where we are basically casting things with pigmented color from the beginning. So it goes that. But yeah, these are all. I mean, the struggle for us has been to actually get it built. And most of the projects that you see are, I mean, in terms for us, they're not like private clients; they are larger commercial clients. So for us, that was the big challenge to actually even get even this much done from our point of view, right? I'm not saying that, of course, you can do a lot more in terms of what the project can be as a project, but what we could build is this right now, as of now.
Thank you. I think that's it for the day. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We're signing off.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.